Hey guys, welcome to the Friday recap for week 3 of our Nobody Special series. I hope you have been engaged in the Word of God. I hope you've been reading along as we've been reading. We're in Matthew 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 this week. And then tomorrow morning, we will be in Mark 1 and Luke 5. Parts of both of those chapters, because that's what Norm's going to be preaching on Sunday. So, hope you guys are reading along with us. But before we dive into our Friday recap, there's two things. The first is that DNOW registration is now live. So you can go to the app, you can click on the LTC outlet tab, and then go to DNOW registration. And you can access it there. The other thing that I wanted you guys to know is that, I guess more, not necessarily for you guys to know, but I felt like there were some things that I wanted, that I wish I would have said on Wednesday that I wanted to highlight here. Some things that I feel like we still needed to talk about. Whenever we met with our college group that night, there were some things that, just through that conversation with them, I'm like, man, I really want to kind of reiterate some of this with our students. And guys, what I wanted you to get is that if you remember in the story we were talking about with Moses in Exodus 33, right? God told him, hey, I'll give you the promised land, but I'm not going to go with you. Just a simple, practical way for us to think about that. Think about the one thing in life that you want. What's the biggest dream that you have? And you can be childish with this. Like, if your dream is that you're one day a millionaire or a billionaire, if your dream is that one day you're the CEO of Fortune 500 company or a, powerful politician, or maybe it's that you're happily married with kids, nice house that's paid off and cars and that kind of thing. Like, maybe whatever your biggest dream is, what is it? Again, whatever that may be. Maybe it's that you're an astronaut. I don't know. But whatever that dream is, if God were to come to you and say, hey, I'm going to give you that dream, that thing that you want more than anything else in this life, I'll give it to you. What would your response be if he were to say, but I'm not going to give you myself? Because that's what God did to Moses. He said, Moses, y'all have wanted this for years and years and years. While you were in captivity, you were dreaming about the promised land. And then I bring you out of Egypt to take you to the promised land. And now you guys have been a bunch of punks, right? Like, y'all have been disobedient. And so God tells them, I'm going to still give you the promised land. I'm going to give you everything that you've ever dreamed about, your greatest desire. But I'm not going to give you myself, because if I did, I'd kill you, is what God tells them. And Moses says, that's not good enough, God. I don't want the promised land without you. I don't want the blessing without the blesser, like we talked about on Wednesday night. But if God were to come to you and tell you he'd give you whatever you wanted, whatever that dream is that you had, but the one caveat is that he wouldn't be a part of your life, would you be okay with that? Would you take that deal? Or would you tell God, no, that's not going to work for me. I don't want that without you. Because I think that if we're all honest with ourselves, there are some of us that would totally take that deal. And if that's where you're at, number one, I want you to be honest with yourself. Number two, I want you to be honest with God. Because there's some things that need to happen in your life. Maybe you need to have a conversation with me or somebody, but we need to have some conversations with ourselves, with God, and with other people to figure out what needs to change in our life to where we realize that God is more important than the things that God can give us. God is more important than the things that we strive for. Because a relationship with God means that all those things are worthless in comparison to him. And what I shared with our college students was that, for example, my wife, Katie, there's nothing that anybody could offer me to say, you know what, hey, if I give you this, it's all yours, but you're going to have to leave your wife. It doesn't matter what anybody offers me. They could offer me $1 million. They could offer me an island with houses and a plane to travel to, whatever. It doesn't matter what was offered to me. If somebody were to offer me everything in this world, but I had to leave my wife, I would not leave my wife because I love her and because I have a relationship with her. And if you're willing to give up God because you want the things that God could give you, then that's indicative that you don't have a relationship with God, or maybe your relationship's just not where it needs to be. So I didn't want to leave those things unsaid. I just felt like that's a little bit more challenge for what we were talking about on Wednesday night. But with that being said, we're going to dive into the Friday recap and just look at what we've been reading this week. So in Matthew 11, we have some messengers that come from John the Baptist, and they come to Jesus, and they're letting them know that John is out of prison, and he's, John the Baptist is getting clarification on who Jesus is. He's finding out, is Jesus this? Is this the Messiah that we've been waiting for? He's been hearing about the things that have been going on, and so. Word goes back to John that Jesus is the Messiah, that he is the one that they've been waiting for. And then Jesus continues to teach his disciples. Then in chapter 12, Jesus teaches that he is the God of the Sabbath. And so he's teaching this because the Pharisees were having problems with the way that they were doing things. And Jesus lets them know that, look, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. You can't come to me and tell me that I'm doing things wrong on the Sabbath. I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. And essentially what he begins to teach in all this is that you guys have all these crazy systems in place, but they're just religion. Like, it has nothing to do with a relationship with God. And y'all are just building up all these religious systems to make yourselves look better. And that's not what this is about. It's about a relationship with the Lord. And so Jesus, he continues healing people. He continues teaching. In chapter 13, we've got the parable of the sower, which is one that we are all very familiar with, right? That the man goes out to sow seed, and he sows it along the path, and the birds devour it. He sows seed on the rocky ground, where there's not a lot of soil, and the seed sprouts and something grows up, but then it dies quickly because it doesn't have roots that grow down deep. And then there's the seed that's cast among the weeds that grows up, but then it's choked out by the weeds. And then there's the seeds that fall in the good soil, and that's the one that grows and also bears fruit. And so Jesus is teaching about the fruit that comes in our life whenever we receive the word. What does it look like? Are you somebody that's getting choked out by sin in your life? Are you somebody that you received it, you were pumped up, maybe you were at camp or D-Now or something, you received the word and you were so excited, but you never took time to let your roots grow down deep, and so you ended up withering, and now you've got no faith. Like your faith is not there. Or maybe you're somebody that you received the word with gladness, and you sprouted and you took deep roots. You started getting into the word of God, spending time in prayer, and now you're seeing all these fruit come into your life. Maybe you're seeing the fruits of the Spirit. Maybe you're seeing the fruit that we bear through sharing the gospel in other people. Maybe you're seeing those kinds of fruit. But, it's a great passage for you to take evaluation of your life and, kind of take an inventory and see, which one am I? Then we had Jesus. He teaches his disciples the purpose of his parables, right? So he taught everything in parables, and he's letting them know that here's the reason why I'm telling you the parables, because there's people that are going to receive this well, and there's people that aren't. And, there's people that are going to have hardened hearts, and they're not going to hear what I'm trying to tell them. And there's people that are going to hear what I'm telling them through these parables. And so then we keep going, and we see that, he continues to teach in more parables there, more teaching, the mustard seed and the leaven, and then the prophecy of the parables, and prophecy and parables. I'm sorry. The parable of the weeds gets explained later on. And so we see the parable of the hidden treasure and the parable of pearl of great value, which I love those. It's where Jesus is saying that are, I am worth everything you could ever give. It's just like if somebody is walking in a field and they find this pearl of great value and they say, you know what, I'm going to sell everything I have so that I can buy this field so that this pearl becomes mine, because this pearl is invaluable. And he's saying that's what is, a relationship with him should be like, that we're willing to lay everything down for that relationship with him. And then Jesus is rejected in Nazareth, which is his hometown. So then we continue on to chapter 14, where John the Baptist ends up dying. He's killed at the hands of Herod the Tetrarch. And so, there's a long story there, but essentially he told somebody, hey, I'll give you whatever you want other than half of my kingdom. And this person said, well, I want the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And so John the Baptist is executed. But then we go straight from that into Jesus feeding the 5,000, a miracle where he created food, very similar to like what Moses and the people of Israel saw in the desert, that God was raining down this food for them, right? And so Jesus, whenever he creates food from essentially nothing, from 5 loaves and 2 fish, he's creating food out of nothing. And very, very reminiscent of the God of, that God that they'd heard about from the Old Testament. So big moment there. Jesus walks on the water, calls Peter out on the water, and continues healing people. And then in chapter 15, we see Jesus giving some teaching on, traditions and commandments, and letting people know that, again, these Pharisees, that they keep going on and they try to correct Jesus and tell Jesus what he's doing wrong. And Jesus tells them, you guys don't even follow the law. Like, there's law that tells you you're supposed to honor your parents, and you've made up fake laws to get you out of honoring your parents. So calls them out on that. And then he talks about what defiles a person, that it's not what goes in, it's not what we eat that defiles you, but it's what comes out of your mouth. And so, essentially what he's saying is it's not the things that you consume, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much of the word you read if you're not being obedient, right? If you're taking in the word, then you should be obedient in the word, taking the word out, right? Like, it should go out from you. So what goes in is not as important as what comes out. You could sit around and listen to pastors all day long, but if you're not taking what they're saying, applying it to your life and letting it change you and go out from you, then what are you doing? So, it all kind of goes back to that, Jesus talking about heart issues. Jesus talks a lot about the heart, and that it's not about the things that, the way that, it's not about the show that you put on, it's about what comes out of your heart. And what comes out of your heart ends up being the things that, overflow into your life. Wherever your heart is, it's going to overflow in the way that you live, the way that you speak, and all those different things. So, and then we see an example of faith from the Canaanite woman who just had faith that Jesus could heal her daughter, and Jesus did. And Jesus continued to heal people, and then he feeds another 4,000 people at the end of chapter 15. So that's what we've read this week. Brief, 30,000 foot view from the airplane as we're flying over. There's so much more in there than what we've even mentioned today, but that's all we've really got time for as we just kind of recap it. So I want you guys to get into the Word, man. Engage with the Word of God. Spend time reading the Word of God. There's so much good stuff in here that you guys can learn from, you can grow from, you can apply to your life. And so tomorrow, again, we've got a couple chapters that we're reading pieces of, as we prepare for Norm's sermon on Sunday. So Mark 1, 16 through 18, and then Luke 5, 1 through 11. And guys, I hope you're reading. And if you are, feel free to record a brief video and send it to me of what God's been speaking to you from the reading. We love to hear those things and hear from you guys on what you've been reading, that you've actually been doing what we talk about. So you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you on Sunday morning and again next Wednesday. And don't forget, D-Now registration is live. You can find that in the app. All right, y'all have a great weekend.